Well, good afternoon and welcome to H360 Live. My name is Dave Duplay, and joining me here in the studio today, as always, is my colleague from Healthy h360, Miss Cortland Long. Cortland, how are you today?
I'm well, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I really like the new glasses.
Well, thank you. I'm enjoying them myself. I'm just wondering if we're going to get a text or a phone call from Miss Peggy after the show saying she doesn't like my new big glasses.
Oh, well, I hope that she does like them. They're very stylish.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, we have a great show for you guys today. We have, in a little bit, coming on the set, Jessica Keenan Smith. Jessica is the founder and chief editor of Living Well with Epilepsy, and let me tell you, it's going to be an exciting show because she is living well with epilepsy. She knows a lot about it. I can't wait to dig in about her organization and all the great things she's doing to educate those people living with epilepsy. But first, Cortland, as always, we have an interesting article, and this one is kind of timely, I think. It's all about regular checkups. And you know, some people go through life and they have very little health issues. But the point is they're not invincible. And so getting regular checkups, whether it's with your physician or your dentist or whoever it is, it's really important, right? So for two reasons, really. One is to take a gauge or a check on your health at a certain point in time. The second is early detection. And we know that regular visits to your physician will pick up, especially a specialist, will pick up things early when you have time to treat them. So, Cortland, I have to ask you, do you get regular checkups?
Absolutely, I do. I'm a huge proponent of getting regular checkups, and I go and get all the ones that are appropriate for my age and gender. And in fact, tomorrow I'm going to see the dentist.
Is that your way of saying you're going to be in late?
Yeah, Dave, I might be a little late tomorrow.
Okay. Well, since you're going to see your dentist, that's excusable.
Yeah.
I'll put you down for a half a day of vacation.
Well, speaking of seeing the dentist, we have some examples of these checkups, you know, that you're talking about. And the first one is a dental checkup. Getting regular teeth cleanings and dental exams about twice a year is really important. And many people will go years without seeing the dentist because their teeth look fine. But it's really important to go because plaque and bacteria will build up over time, and it's really only your dentist is the one who has the tools that can really help you out. And not only that, your dentist is able to spot cavities and treat those cavities, which if left untreated for a long time can do some serious damage.
Yeah, you know, that's a great point. Your teeth, I guess probably because you brush and you're really focused on the outside, right? But behind the scenes, you know, that where the plaque can build up, you know, you got to be careful. You know, I got to tell you, I use one of these Sonic Care toothbrushes, and I have to admit I use it in the shower because toothpaste flies all over the place when I get this thing going. But it really allows me to get in behind and clean the teeth, and but I do see my dentist twice a year, so that's a good point. You know, along with that, the regular checkups, there's certain points in time as you age you should do certain things. And our friends from the Colon Cancer Challenge Foundation have drilled it into us that when you turn 50 on your 50th birthday, you should treat yourself to a colonoscopy. The procedure is pretty easy. The prep work, not so much, but the procedure is pretty easy. But going to your, getting a colonoscopy will identify if you've got polyps. They can remove those, and early detection is what really saves people's lives. So I'm a big proponent of it. You got to think about it like your car, right? You take your car into the mechanic, what do? They lift the hood, they change the oil, they look at the spark plugs, and that's going to ensure your car is running well for years to come. Same way with your body.
This is a very good analogy.
It is a good analogy.
Yeah, and so the last one that we have to talk about is your routine physicals. So getting this physical is very important. About once a year, your physician will check all of your vitals, check your ears, your blood pressure, also take blood to do some blood work and check your oxygen levels. And again, most people get this done about every 2 to 3 years because they feel fine, but it's very important to go once a year just to make sure that everything is functioning as it is. And if you're developing any medical conditions, your physician can monitor this at your physical. But I also want to point out that there are some things that we did not cover in these regular checkups, and those include doing your self-check. So don't forget to, you know, check if you're a man, check your testicles, a woman, check your breasts for lumps. Those are very important. That's early detection. Getting your annual gynecologic exam, getting mammograms. If you're a woman, I think over 40, you should get a mammogram. And also do your skin checks. It doesn't matter if you're pale skin or darker skin tone, get a skin check every year.
Yeah, that skin check is really important, right? You got to think about the sunscreen when you go out, but that skin check is vital.
Absolutely.
Early detection.
It's
right?
key.
It's key. Now, we don't want to send everybody in panic mode here and have you get up in the middle of our broadcast and call your doctor to schedule your appointment. You can wait till we're done.
Yeah.
But the point is do yourself a favor and get those checkups, and they're going to pay off. So, as we always do every week, we send our interns out on the streets of New York to Bryant Park to see what our New York friends know about regular checkups and how they're monitoring their health. Cortland, would you like to watch the video?
I would love to.
Okay, Matthew, would you please roll the tape?
Hi, my name is Olivia and I'm from h360 and this is In the Field. How often do you see your physician?
I go probably around 2 or 3 times a year, just for regular checkups.
Probably about once every 3 months.
I go for my annual every year, and I go for other appointments if I think necessary.
I go to checkups once a year, my regular physician, and then if I'm ever sick and need to see my physician, I go.
Do you schedule regular appointments with your dentist or eye doctor?
I go twice a year to my dentist, and I actually work for an eye doctor, so I'm always there.
Okay, that's cool.
My dentist, yes. My eye doctor, no. But I definitely need to.
Okay.
I go every time I'm supposed to.
Okay.
I do see my dentist regularly, every 6 months. I do not have an eye doctor. I've never worn glasses or anything, so I've only ever been to the eye doctor really to get the test done for the DMV for a driver's license.
Do you think it's important for everyone to get blood work done when they go see their doctor?
In my opinion, I think it is a really important thing. A lot of people always neglect that fact because they don't like the needle, they don't like seeing blood drawn, but it tells you a lot about what's going on inside of your body. And I know personally whenever I go, I always have blood work done just to see how my cholesterol is, how my fat levels are, everything like that. So it's definitely recommended for everyone.
It's probably important to do that. It's not something that I do, again, just like I'm not seeing my eye doctor, but I definitely think it's probably important to do that.
Yes, I actually just got my blood work done this morning.
Of course, it's the tell-all. It's all that they do, all the tests that are standard and necessary, and they keep you up to date on if you're healthy and all those things. So,
Why do people tend to neglect seeing their physicians regularly?
A lot of people are kind of scared of what they're going to find out when they go. If they know that something is wrong with them and that it's a developing thing, they don't want to go back every so often and be like, oh, it's getting worse, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
They kind of just want to deal with it in their own ways. But instead, it should be reinforced that they should go to their doctors because they're there to help them.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that's why a lot of people neglect it. Some people just forget, they don't care. But it really is an important thing, and it can prevent a lot of diseases from happening in the future.
Definitely.
Probably because they don't want to see the results of whatever ailment that they're trying to avoid, but they know that they have. And because it takes time to actually see your doctor, and if something comes up in place of it, it's easier to do what's easiest versus what's difficult.
I think people are afraid of the truth and also lazy.
I don't know. It's not a smart thing to do. I think that people maybe don't want to hear bad news. Maybe they're scared of that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an insurance thing. Hopefully not. But I think that everyone should go see the doctor and not neglect it.
Well, Cortland, what did you think about the video?
Oh, I love that video. Everyone seemed to be very healthy and on top of their annual checks, except for maybe that one guy.
Yeah, well, there's always one in the crowd, right? And how about the girl that she just had blood drawn? How ironic was that,
I know,
right?
that was such a coincidence. Or maybe our interns were looking out for signs that people had just gone and gotten their routine exams.
You're not suggesting that our interns may have used that as a prop, are you?
Not at all.
Well, I think they did a great job, and I think the people in New York City, they're on top of their health and they're doing great. Well, Cortland, now our favorite time of the show.
Yes.
Our guest is making her way into the studio. Again, our guest this afternoon is Jessica Keenan Smith. She is the founder and managing editor of Living Well With Epilepsy, and as I mentioned earlier, she knows what she's talking about because she is living well with epilepsy. Living Well with Epilepsy has grown into a boutique media brand that is completely focused on, as you guessed it, epilepsy. Jessica brings more than 20 years of experience of marketing and digital media to Living Well with Epilepsy. Jessica, welcome in to the studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so glad you're here. I think our script writers have a typo in the script because you cannot have 20 years of digital.
I do.
Oh, it must have been 10. They must have made a mistake.
I do.
Well, you look great, and I'm so happy you're here. We have a lot to cover. We want to find out all about your organization and what you're doing and your journey with epilepsy. So, Cortland, what do you say we get started?
I would love to. Again, thank you so much for coming in, and you're coming from New Jersey. It was very nice. And so we'd like to start with a little bit of your history. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was about 12, so the summer between 7th and 8th grade. And I had a grand mal seizure, so a tonic-clonic seizure. Those are the kind of big, ugly seizures where you fall on the ground and turn blue and convulse. They're what people think of when you say seizure. And that took a while for me to find control. My family went through, several medications, and eventually we found a combo of meds that worked for me, and I was able to graduate high school, get a college degree, eventually get my driver's license, get married, and have a beautiful daughter who's now 13 years old.
Wow, that's fantastic. So I take it that the process of getting the meds right was really important.
Yeah, it takes several years.
Yeah. So now you've been on this journey, and now you're an adult. So how has the journey impacted your life today? What are you doing?
Epilepsy, it surprises many people to know that it has sort of a holistic impact, especially when it's somebody like me that, looks normal, so to speak. I have to make sure that I get enough sleep, that I live in moderation, that I don't drink, that I take my meds every day. I take a handful of meds every morning and every night. And I had a neighbor come up to me just recently and say, "Do you take medication?" Now, we've lived on our block for almost 10 years. And this is a neighbor surprised that I take medication. So, I even still have to be conscious of taking my meds every day.
Cool.
Yeah, medication's very important. Was there a specific incident in your life that was the inspiration behind starting Living Well with Epilepsy?
So, back around the time when my daughter was born, I had written a picture book, and the picture book was about a little girl living with epilepsy. My daughter does not have seizures, but that was the topic of the manuscript, and I looked into getting it published, and a friend had said, if you want to get the picture book manuscript published, then you need to have an online presence. And I decided to go ahead and create this blog, and I wanted the blog to be more about sort of epilepsy awareness and a broader topic, and put a lot of effort and time into creating resources on the site. So now we are several years later, and the site is read by folks in over 100 countries, and it has grown and grown, and the picture book manuscript is in a drawer somewhere.
It always works that way, right?
It is what it is.
So it evolved from just a blog site to now when people come, what are they going to find?
There's quite a bit that they'll find. So they find personal stories from folks, whether it's writers who have a column on the site or folks that are readers that have submitted their own story. There's information on clinical trials. There is information on our app, information on initiatives that we've started, like our blog relay. And then there's basic information on epilepsy.
And so you have this wide breadth of readers all around the world. For a first-time visitor, what do you really want someone to take away?
I want them to, first of all, know that they're not alone. Mm-hmm. I really want people to kind of understand that, there's there's more than 65 million people living with epilepsy around the world. Epilepsy is as prevalent as breast cancer, and it's often a statistic that surprises people, especially the newly diagnosed. I want people to realize that they can talk about it, but they don't have to. They can find a community, and they can express themselves in ways that they feel comfortable about.
Yeah. So let's talk about the story section of the site, because that's what really interests me. Of course, we're all about sharing your story for inspiration, motivation, and support, or we call it virtual social therapy here at Healthy O360. And I know, because I started Healthy O360, based on a personal cause with my sister-in-law, when you read these stories of all these people around the world, I mean, it's got to make you feel good. What are you thinking when these people are just really sharing the unvarnished truth about where they are in their journey with epilepsy?
So it takes a lot of work to put out Living Well with Epilepsy, but I spend a lot of time connecting with the folks that submit, that send emails just with questions. I have a situation where there's a woman that lives in the same area, and she was just looking for a doctor. So we email corresponded. I connected her with a doc. She, from the doctor's office, said, this doc is a really great fit. Thank you so much. She'll now submit her story. I mean, I really feel like I have a very personal connection with all of these folks. Yeah. I got a contact from somebody who said, totally unrelated, my dad has passed away. So they feel a personal connection as well.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Developing this personal connection is really important, and I think especially as you do some surveys on your site. So what are some of these things that you're asking for your members, and what are you doing with those results?
So the results of the surveys really just directs the content. It's me asking, what do you as a reader want to see? But there's a lot of potential for that information, and we're just asking, basically what do they want? What do they need to know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's shift gears a bit, because you hit on an important point, and it's all about clinical trials, right? The industry is working so hard to bring new therapies to market, and science and medicine are advancing. So tell me a little bit about your clinical trial piece on your site. How does that work, and where do you get your information from?
So clinicaltrials.gov allows you to embed a search in your site, and there was a call from my readers to provide information on clinical trials, and clinical trials require rigorous approval process, and they are offered not just by the government but by institutions and so on. So in order to feel comfortable with the information that I was providing, I wanted it from one central resource, and so I went to clinicaltrials.gov. I searched epilepsy, and I embedded that search in my site. So it's always up to date. It's not super responsive as far as mobile friendly, but at least it's regulated and up to date as far as clinical trials go.
Good.
I love that you're reaching out to your community to find out, what exactly they need to live a supported lifestyle. And so I would like to ask you, if you're a friend of someone who's newly diagnosed, how can we best support that individual?
I think it's really important to listen. I mean, it's how I approach the site. It's how I approach a lot of things. What does that person need? And, let them know that they can talk about it. A lot of people feel like they can't talk about their epilepsy, but they don't have to. You don't have to walk into a job interview and immediately divulge that you have epilepsy. But once you're on the job, you can find somebody that you can talk to about it and feel like you have a little safety net on the job.
Yeah, that's a good point. When is the right time? How do you, I guess it's individual, right? When you're in the work environment, how comfortable you feel with somebody, maybe your supervisor. But if your meds aren't stable, for example, or you have certain times where you have a high propensity of having a seizure, you obviously should let somebody at work know, right? That you suffer from epilepsy or you're living with epilepsy, and what to do if you go into a seizure.
So there's a couple of things. If your seizures are not controlled, it really helps to wear some sort of medic ID. One thing that I insisted on including in the app is first aid information, and more specific than that, how do you want to be treated when you have a seizure? Because not everybody has to go to the hospital immediately. In the workplace, it often is, addresses kind of liability issues, and it makes the workplace feel more comfortable to have you go to the hospital. But as far as telling somebody, it's, you take that time and you get to know, I take that time, I get to know someone, and I do have a little trick that I use. I tend to, once I've gotten to know somebody, I say, oh, you didn't know I have epilepsy? And they then kind of go back in their mind, I should remember that. Why don't I remember that? And then they feel comfortable enough to ask a question. Well, what do I do if you have a seizure? It just opens the door to more questions, and it sort of shifts the balance of power back to me.
Yeah, that's a good tip. And if you like that tip, you can chat to the right. We use the hashtag #RealStories. We'd appreciate it if you did the same when chatting with us. So your digital, when I introduced you, your marketing, your digital experience, you've got a couple of apps, an iPhone app and an Android app. Tell me how those work.
They are easily downloaded on mobile device. They are actually now able to sync up with wearables, which is really exciting. And within the app, you can track seizures, you can track your meds, you can track your moods, you can track your vitals. It's really, it addresses that kind of holistic need with epilepsy.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of the app.
Yeah, it sounds like it's wonderful.
Yeah, you should definitely be very proud of that app. It sounds like a vital necessity to people who are living with epilepsy. I want to go back to something that you spoke about briefly a little bit earlier, is your blog relays. So I know that some of our members on Healthy O360 have participated in your last blog relay, but can you tell our viewers who might not know exactly what it is?
Sure. So in June, we did a blog relay. Every June, we address stigma awareness, because stigma is a real issue for people living with epilepsy. And this past June, we did our very first epilepsy blog relay. And I asked some folks in the community who have their own blog to do one post in the month. And at the beginning of the post, say, this is part of the epilepsy blog relay. At the bottom of the post, say, look out for tomorrow's post, and include the link. I put together a schedule, and this was essentially modeled on the UN Foundation's Shot at Life, their blog relay. It was just a pretty simple idea, and we got some really great feedback, and it increased traffic on all the folks' sites. And so we're going to do it again in November, and we've already had some really great feedback and some folks that are really excited about it.
Wow. Well, we'll have to participate.
Yes, we will. I think we're planning on doing it again. And you bring up stigma, something that you were fighting against in the blog relay. Every day, though, how can we work to fight against the stigma?
Addressing people's concerns and debunking myths. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Please don't put anything in my mouth. if you have a dirty wallet and you are considering putting it in my mouth when I have a seizure, please don't. First of all, it's gross. It's disgusting. But I'm never going to swallow my tongue. I'm just not. Don't put a spoon in my mouth. Don't put a ruler in my mouth. Nothing needs to go in there. So just simple things like that.
Yeah. The conversation has to move from the back room to the front room.
Yeah.
You know, we have to be open to talking about it. We did recently a show on mental illness, and it's the same thing, right? We can't be afraid to talk about these issues and educate people around us. So that's a very good point. So the blog relay exercises your fingers on the keyboard and you're blogging. We go to a lot of physical walks. There are a lot of fundraisers, and we're coming up on our walk season, and we go and we hand out our Healthy h360 wristbands, and we meet people, and we really enjoy ourselves, and we learn so much about so many different conditions. Do you also have a fundraiser like that, or do you participate in some of these 5K or walks or fun runs? And
the way I handle that is I've created a calendar for folks to submit their event. There is no real, or there wasn't, no real one place for a person with epilepsy to go and find events in their local area. It was reliant upon the local epilepsy affiliate, and the local epilepsy affiliate can't be involved in everything. So I just open it up, and if you have a walk or a fun run or anything, you can just submit your event.
yeah, that's so great.
Yeah, great resource. But we're coming to the end of our show, and so I'd like to ask you if you have one piece of advice that you could give to someone who's living with epilepsy or someone who's a caregiver of someone with epilepsy. If you could look in the camera and tell us, what would that be?
I guess I would say you're not alone. You're not alone as a caregiver. You're not alone as a person with epilepsy. There's millions of us out there.
That is such great advice. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Jessica, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate your time. You're doing such great work. We'd like to thank our viewers and members at home for tuning in, and we'd like to thank our sponsors for making this all possible. Remember, all of our episodes can be viewed on demand at healthy360.com, and our podcast can be found in the iTunes Store. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. We use the hashtag #RealStories when posting, and we'd like you to do the same to help us out. So on behalf of Cortland Long, myself, and the entire Healthy h360 family, we hope you have a very pleasant afternoon. We look forward to seeing you again next week. But before I sign off, I'd like to give a shout out to Riley Foley, who is in the hospital, getting teared up a little bit here.
Oh.
My little Riley. She's home doing well.
Yeah.
So Riley, from Uncle Dave and everybody, thumbs up. We'll see you next week.